Okay, so this is our second little review lesson here, and we are going to take a look at fractions, or as they're sometimes called, rational numbers. And they're called rational numbers because you can express them as a ratio of two integers. So for instance, if I write something like 3 over 4, okay, my number on the top, called my numerator, is an integer number. The number on the bottom, called the denominator, is a rational number. So I'm writing them as as an integer. So I'm writing them as one integer over another integer. So that's sort of two terms to keep in mind. The top is called the numerator, and the bottom here is called the denominator. Okay. And I am going to pause this for a second. So the first thing that we want to be able to do with fractions is sometimes you'll be working away on a question and they'll give you what's known as a mixed fraction here, which is a fraction with sort of a whole number part here, that would be the 3, and a fractional part, the 2/3. We do not want to have any mixed fractions when we are doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Okay? So our first step is always to convert this mixed fraction into an improper fraction. And the way we do that is we look at what's in our denominator down at the bottom. The 3 is in the denominator. Our new improper fraction is going to have a 3 in the denominator. So we just take our denominator, we move it over. Then we just need to figure out what is going to be in our numerator. Well, in our numerator, we are going to take what is in our denominator, okay, our 3 there, multiply it by our big number out here, and add what is up in our numerator before. So 3 times 3 plus 2 gives us 9 plus 2 is 11. So our new fraction here is 11 over 3. Okay, and then we're just going to leave it like that as 11 over 3. Okay. So let's look at the next one here. We got negative 1 and 4/5. We want to, again, convert this to an improper fraction. Let's just ignore the negative sign for right now. Okay, well actually we can just write down the negative sign because we know that our whole thing is going to be negative. Okay, so we'll just put our negative out front there like that. We know that our denominator is going to be the same as the denominator we have right there. So our denominator here is going to be 5. So it's going to be something over 5. What is that something going to be? Well, let's see. We take what we have down here, 5. We multiply it by our whole number, 1. So 5 times 1. And then we're going to add in that number up top, that 4. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 is 9. So we're going to end up with 9 over 5. Negative 9 over 5 is our improper fraction. So the first step is, if you see a mixed fraction, always convert it into an improper fraction. Okay? Good? Okay? And the negative, you just copy the negative over. Okay? But don't put the negative up here when you're doing that multiplication. The other thing to keep in mind with these negative signs here is I've written negative out in front there. I could have also written the negative up here. So made this negative 9 over 5. Okay? Those mean the exact same thing. Okay? I can have the negative out in front. I can have it up top. I could have it down on the bottom. As long as I just have one negative sign wherever I go, I'm good. Okay? Okay, so now we want to look at how you multiply and divide fractions. So multiplication is pretty straightforward. You just multiply the two numerators together and then multiply the two denominators together. So if I've got 3 over 4 times negative 2 over 6, I'm going to multiply my two numerators. 3 times negative 2. And I'm going to multiply my two denominators. 4 times 6. By multiplying my two numerators, I get my new numerator. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Remember, we're multiplying here. So 3 times 2, 6. Okay. And if I multiply 4 times 6 down at the bottom, I get 24. And when I get an answer like this, I always check to see if it is in what we call lowest terms. Okay, so is there a number that I can divide into each of these two numbers here? Yeah, we can divide the top by 6 and the bottom by 6. So divide by 6, divide by 6, and I'm going to get negative 1 over 4. So that would be my final answer. So I look for something I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by. Okay. So should we try this next one here? We've got, let's see, negative 1 1/4 times negative 2 over 3. What should we do first here? Yeah, we want this to be an improper fraction first. So we take our negative 1 1/4 and let's make it an improper fraction. So we know that it's going to be negative. We know we're going to have a 4 in our denominator, and then we do 4 times 1 plus 1 is going to give us 5. So this becomes 5 times negative 2 over 3. Okay. And how do we do our multiplication here? Ashley. Okay, so what's our new numerator going to be? Numerator times numerator, we're going to get negative 10. And what about in our denominator? Yeah, 4 times 3 is 12. Now, what should we do with this negative sign right here that we have out in front? We can sort of, what I like to do is take it and move it up here. Okay, so take it away from here, move it up into the numerator. Okay, then our numerator would be negative 5 times negative 2, which would give us, positive 10. Let me just rewrite that. Positive 10. Okay, so get in the habit of moving that negative sign up into the numerator. Now, we ask ourselves, is this in lowest terms? Is there something we can divide both the top and the bottom by? Jeremiah, divide them both by 2 to get 5 over 6. Okay. All right. Now, if you can multiply, you can divide. Okay? Because dividing is the same as multiplication with this extra step in the beginning. We take our second fraction, invert it, and then we multiply. So if we've got something like 3 over 4 divided by 4 over 5, we are going to keep the first one the same, 3 over 4. Exactly. We just want to invert the second fraction, the one that we're dividing by. So we're going to take 4 over 5 and turn it into 5 over 4. And instead of dividing, we're going to multiply. And then we multiply just like we did in the previous step. So what are we going to have here if we do our multiplication? Adam. Yeah, 15 over 16. Now, is this thing in lowest terms? What do you think? Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, there's nothing we can divide each of these in. Okay. Let's try the second one here. Negative 2 4/7 divided by 3. What are we going to do first? What would you do first, Adam? Absolutely, that's a good thing to do. Okay, so we're going to put 7 down in the denominator because we've got a 7 in there already. What do you think our numerator is going to be here? Adam, you want to take a shot at it? Anita, help him out. So it's going to be 2 times 7, which is 14, plus 4, which is going to give us 18. And we have this negative sign. I'm going to put that negative sign up there in the numerator. So it'll be negative 18 over 7. Okay. Now, we're dividing by 3. Okay? Ashley, what do you mean by just putting a 1? Absolutely. That's exactly what you do. If we see a number like this, we write it as 3 over 1. Best thing you can do. So if you got a fraction, turn this whole number into a fraction. Now we can follow that rule that we talked about up above. We'll keep the first one the same, negative 18 over 7. We will invert the second one, 1/3, and we will multiply. Okay? So what do we get when we do our multiplication here? Adam. Yeah. Multiply numerators to get negative 18. Multiply the denominator. 7 times 3 is 21. And then we check to see if this is in lowest terms. Well, I know that I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 3. So I'm going to actually end up with negative 6 over 7. Okay. And that's as good as we can do. Okay, so that's multiplication and division. Next up, addition and subtraction. Okay? Addition and subtraction, you need a common denominator. So what do we mean by a common denominator here? Well, if I've got 4 over 3 plus negative 3 over 2, I look at my two denominators, 3 and 2, they are different. I need a denominator that, I need to turn these two denominators so that they are the same number. Paulina, is it Paula? Okay, Paula, go ahead. Yeah, 6. How did you know to use 6? Yeah, when in doubt, you can always just multiply your two denominators together. So we're going to use 6 as our common denominator. And I'll just write CD, common denominator is 6. So what do we have to do to each of these fractions to get a common denominator of 6? Well, if I've got 4 over 3, I have to multiply the bottom by 2. And if I multiply the bottom by 2, I have to multiply the top by 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Same sort of thing in the second fraction. I've got 3 over 2. I have to multiply the bottom by 3 to get 6. So I have to multiply the top by 3. Because whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So that's going to give me, for my first fraction, 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 2 is 6. And for my second fraction, negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. 2 times 3 is 6. So there I have 8 over 6 plus negative 9 over 6. I have my common denominator. Now, how do I add these two things together? Anybody remember? Mike. Yeah, so I add my numerators. 8 plus negative 9 gives me negative 1. And what do I do with my denominator, Mike? What will my denominator be? 6, yeah. You went to all that work to get a common denominator? Keep that common denominator. Negative 1 over 6. We are good there. Okay, last question for fractions here. 1 2/5 minus 10 over 3. What should we do first? Frito, what do you think we should do first? Exactly. Get rid of this improper fraction. So what's our denominator going to be for the improper fraction? 5. Okay, and we get our numerator by doing 5 times 1 plus 2, so it's going to be 7 over 5 minus 10 over 3. All right, we need a common denominator. What should we use as our common denominator here? Hannah, 15. Okay, so we're going to have to multiply by 3 and by 3 in our first fraction, by 5 and by 5 in our second fraction. So we'll get 21 over 15 minus, minus 50 over 15. Okay, 21. We know that our denominator here is going to be 15. How do we get our numerator? We have to do 21 minus 50. 29. Now, is it going to be positive or negative? Here's the thing to ask yourself when you're doing this. We're starting at 29, okay? And imagine we're adding negative 50. We change this to adding a negative. So we're starting at 21. We're going down 50. Are we going to make it to 0 and then go past it? Yes, we are. So our answer is going to have to be negative here. So you're right about the 29. It's going to be 29, but it's going to be negative 29 over 50. Okay? So something like that, you can always check that on your calculator if you're not sure. Okay? 21 minus 50, punch it in. You'll get that negative 29, and then make sure you know that it's over 15. Okay? And that is it for fractions.